Okay, so now that we know the basic formatting for chemical reactions and we can identify that they're existing, it's time to start identifying what kinds of reactions we're working with. And we're going to start with 5 major types. First is called a synthesis reaction, and that's when you have 2 more simple substances in your reactants and then they combine to make a product that is more complicated. All right. Generally speaking, while this doesn't always hold true, you start out with 2 reactants and have 1 product. But the big thing is that you have multiple reactants that combine into fewer but more complex products. Okay, so an example of this is magnesium and oxygen can combine to make 1 compound called magnesium oxide. All right. And for a few of these, I just have little mini videos. Let's see if I can get this to play.
Hold the magnesium in the flame without directly looking. You never want to look directly at the burning magnesium. It's going to emit a very, very bright white light, and so you want to make sure you look away so that you don't damage your eyes or vision. So make sure you look away from the flame as magnesium burns. Have a watch glass close by, and you just let the magnesium oxide, which is the product being synthesized, the oxygen in the air will combine with the magnesium to create magnesium oxide. And it's going to be a kind of white powder. It will drop onto your watch glass so that you're able to observe the product. So we have the watch glass, and one word of caution, never drop the burning magnesium directly onto the watch glass. Hold it and just let it burn until it burns itself out. And it will crumble and the product will hit the watch glass. But if you actually drop a burning piece of magnesium onto the watch glass, you do risk breakage, so use caution. So again, this is synthesis, the burning of magnesium. And now I can release it, and you see how it just crumbles. And we have some magnesium oxide. That's why the crucible tongs, the tips are now white. Magnesium oxide is a very soft white substance. So that is an example of a synthesis reaction, the burning of magnesium.
All right, next type of reaction is called a decomposition reaction, and it's kind of the reverse of the synthesis one. You get something that is more complex in your reactants, and then you break it into smaller products. All right. So an example of that is, say you have water and you split it into hydrogen and oxygen gas. Another example that I have a video for is hydrogen peroxide with a catalyst can be split into water and oxygen gas. And here's a video of that. So if you've ever seen I Dream of Jeannie, so you can see the water vapor, and there's oxygen in there too coming off. All right, next kind is called a single replacement reaction. So here you have, it's easier if you're looking at the compound. All right, so you have something that is uncombined, and then another compound. And that element that was by itself sits there and replaces something in the compound and pops something else out to be by itself. So an example of this is zinc and copper sulfate. If you combine these together to create a reaction, the zinc is on its own to start with. It will replace the copper and then pop the copper out for the products, right? So Single replacement is there's one thing that's on its own and it replaces something else. Right? Similar to that is a double replacement reaction. And this is where you have, essentially two compounds, but then they switch their composition. Right? So, and, these will always have two reactants and two products, and they're both compounds, but it's kind of like they just reorder their ions, essentially. All right, so in this case, you start out with silver nitrate and sodium chloride, and then the silver and the sodium essentially switch spots so that you have silver chloride and sodium nitrate. Okay, so double replacement is where two compounds that they're in, kind of rearrange their order so that both of them are slightly different than what they started with. And last one is a combustion reaction, and these are the ones that typically are harder to balance. But oxygen combining with something, and the key to spotting a combustion reaction is that it forms water and carbon dioxide. Right? So like the magnesium and the oxygen forming magnesium oxide wasn't a combustion reaction because there's no carbon dioxide in water. Right? So that would be called a synthesis reaction. A lot of times you can think of these as synthesis reactions too, because you are, taking oxygen and then combining it with something else. But really they get their own name because they don't quite fit that pattern perfectly. But combustion reactions form water and carbon dioxide and involve oxygen in the reactants. Do some practice. See if you can classify these as what type of reaction is going on, right? And what I will do is I will build these into the online quiz, and that's where you can check your answers. So here's the first three. Here are the last three, and that's what your online quiz will be.